Hi, welcome to another episode of A Minute to Midnight. I'm Chris.
And this is Tony.
I just want to start off with a passage of scripture. Let's look at Ephesians 6 verse 12. It says, "We do not wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle against principalities and powers, rulers of the air." What that means is we do not wrestle against human flesh. We don't wrestle against people. It's about the spiritual side of life. So let's share some news that's gone down the last week. What do we got there, Tony?
Well, first off, Chris, an agreement's been reached regarding Iran and its nuclear aspirations. World powers have apparently agreed to limit the amount of nuclear activity Iran can conduct over the next 10 to 15 years in exchange for international sanctions being lifted off the Iranian economy. Well, contrast Hassan Rouhani, his tweet following this: "The steadfastness, resistance, patience, perseverance and support of the great nation of Iran were indeed key to this victory." Contrast that with Benjamin Netanyahu, who stated, "I'd like to say here and now, when you are willing to make an agreement at any cost, this is the result. From the initial reports, we can already conclude that this agreement is an historic mistake for the world." So, really, who's been victorious here? It would seem Iran, who have been until recently chanting death to Israel and death to America. Well, they seem extremely happy, don't they? We've certainly had a lot of news in this last week out of Greece, out of China with the stock market, and also out of New York and the USA. So can you give us a bit of a rundown there, Chris?
Yeah, sure. China's had about a 33% drop in their share market. That's really tanking, and there's an article that came out with a heading: "China looks like it is heading for its version of the 1929 stock market crash." This is serious. Now, in the meantime, the communists have shut down trading for, I think, 9 months for a lot of them. They've really pulled the reins in on any trading whatsoever. So that's their way of keeping this in check. Across to the US, we saw not long after the New York Stock Exchange had a 4-hour, in their words, technical glitch. So that was a communications issue on their technical front. So we've got communism and communication issues. Isn't that interesting, Tony?
Oh, it's obviously just pure coincidence, isn't it, Chris?
On the same day, there was a technical glitch in United Airlines. They had grounded all their planes that morning. So these glitches taking place, are they hackers or what's going on here? There was in part of a news item that was read out that the New York Stock Exchange is saying it definitely wasn't a hack in the system. It was a glitch. Some investigations are going to take place, so it's going to be interesting to see the outcome there. We've had some figures come out per head capita debt for nations throughout the world. Back in May 2014, the figures are quite different to the ones that had just come out in July 2015. An example would be New Zealand. We've gone up 4,000, so it's gone up from $17,000 per head of capita to 21,000, and in that period of time there's been an increase in population of 200,000. So that's not looking good for New Zealand as a nation. But one that really stuck out for me, Tony, was the Australian one. They've gone up from a $12,000 per head debt per head of capita to $23,000.
Wow, that's a huge increase. That's a massive increase.
And that's over, what, 14 months?
Yeah, crazy. What about the United States? Have you got the figures for them?
Yes, well, the US has gone up from $57,000 to $60,500 per head of capita.
Wow, Chris, that's miles above New Zealand or Australia, so that means America's in a bit of trouble, I would say.
Yeah, and the UK's not far behind either. They were just under $19,000 worth of debt last year. This year is that's £23,000.
So it's pounds, not dollars.
Not dollars, sorry, yeah. Pounds. So it's gone up nearly £5,000.
Wow. So everywhere is going up.
Yeah, China's quite a biggie as well. That's gone up from 23,000 yuan to 34,000 yuan.
Wow. So the debt level's going up every which way, isn't it?
Yeah, it has. There is one exception to the rule, though, and it happens to be out of the Eurozone with all that's happening over there.
Let me guess, Chris, it'll be Germany.
Yes, it is Germany. Germany has gone down. It's gone down from 26,000 euro down to 24,800 euro.
Well, that's interesting when you got Greece and countries like that going off the Richter scale with their debt, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's all part of the Eurozone. It just doesn't add up, does it?
No.
The real money market's been hit again, gold and silver. Yet here's an article about sales of gold eagles increased from 21,500 ounces in May to 76,000 ounces in June due to investors' concern on the financial fallout of a Greek exit. However, this was nothing compared to gold eagle buying during the remaining days of last week when the US Mint updated figures on Monday, July 6. Gold eagle sales jumped to 21,500 ounces, the same amount sold the entire month of May. Over the next few days and after suspension of the silver eagle sales, which happened last week, gold eagle sales reached a total of 30,500. They updated their figures to a stunning 65,500 ounces. In just the past few days, 35,000 ounces of gold eagles were sold. If we compare the US Mint's gold eagle sales in the first 10 days in July compared to sales during previous months, we can see just how much demand has increased. And we can't forget too that they've stopped the sales of the US minted silver eagles. And this is all taken from the SRS Rocco site on July the 13th.
Wow, that's quite stunning, isn't it? The fact that they've halted the eagle sales, silver eagle sales, due to supposedly selling them out. So they've shifted, it looks, towards buying gold eagles.
Yeah, and why do they do that? We all know why they do that, because people want it for a safe haven, because things aren't right in the world.
No, they sure aren't. Reminds me of an old song. Welcome, my friends, to the show that never ends. Step inside, step inside. Okay, Chris, so with the situation with Greece and what's going on with China, whereabouts do you think this is leading us? What's really going on here?
Well, in the Greece case, nothing's really changed. Greece is just kicking the can down the road again, as far as I'm concerned. What may happen in Greece, so there may be some fallout with the Greek government, because they had a resolution last week after their vote that's now gone against that vote, because the people wanted the opposite to what's happened. So there could be some fallout there. There'll be a lack of confidence in the government now. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Greek government out of all of this. There could well be some more dialogue between Greece and Russia, but we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. But essentially, it's the Eurozone is just carrying on the same, and after all that's gone on, there's just been no change.
No, well, it looks as if to me that Germany is pretty much in control of what's going on there. They're showing more and more that Merkel and the Germans seem to be at the top of the pile here, calling the shots. Yeah,
them and the French, but you've got to look at it too from their point of view. That if Greece was to, as they call, Grexit, then what other countries follow suit? You've got Portugal sitting in the wings, you've got Spain, and then you've got, to a certain degree, Italy. Those countries too could fall over, be like a domino effect. So they had to be very careful on this. But all they're doing is, once again, they're just kicking the can down the road. The inevitable will happen, and it's just a matter of when.
Well, it seems to me like absolute craziness that Greece is in debt. The problem is they've got debt. The solution that they're offering is, we will loan you more money to pay off your debt. So what's going to be going on here? The debt's just growing because they're borrowing more money at interest to pay off debts that they've already got. I mean, how long can the global situation continue like this, with all countries accumulating more and more debt? It can't go on forever.
No, debt plus debt is more debt.
Exactly.
And since 2008, all I've done, I think I've mentioned it in a program previous to this, that all I've done is put a sticking plaster on an open wound, and the 2008 crisis isn't over.
So since when does having more debt, I mean, think about it in a personal situation. If you're in debt that you can't pay, is the solution to take out more debt to pay off the debt that you already can't pay? It doesn't make sense.
Well, a lot of people actually do use that. A lot of people use their houses as an automatic telling machine, and they go and they just create more debt and, buy now, pay later. I mean, it does happen in everyday households.
So is that what's happening on a global level, global scale?
Well, yes, and what starts at the top flows to the bottom. It's like a pyramid, and it's happening from the top. They're encouraging debt, and of course, debt is a never-ending cycle once you're in it.
Once negotiations are completed for the promised 86 billion euros in bailouts, it's going to give control of Greek banks to the European Central Bank. Greece will basically be handing over its sovereignty to Europe. We could see some of the large Greek banks go under, and I can see in the near future personal and corporate deposits, which we know are unsecured liabilities, well, they'll be given a haircut or stolen from bank accounts. As we've said in previous shows, it's only a matter of time, I think, till all countries will face that scenario. So how does China fit in with this?
Well, this is another part to play in the whole process of the imminent collapse. I believe China is, as with all assets, they can get into a bubble, and what I mean by that is in China's case, the last couple of months, as we've seen the 33% drop in its stock market. In effect, it's tanked, and that only happens when you've got overvalued stocks and you've got a rampant market. And over in China, I mean, it's sort of the way I can refer it to as our 1987 stock market crash here in New Zealand. I remember that quite well, and a lot of companies went down overnight. But at that time, every person you talk to almost was in the stock market. Same thing has happened in China. A lot of mums and pops are in the stock market over there, and they've just got burnt big time.
That's an interesting perspective.
But it was interesting too from that soon after we had the so-called glitch in the New York Stock Exchange, I can't help but see there's an association here. The fact that Chinese stocks had tanked, people were starting to sell off. The Chinese government, they moved in pretty quick to stop that. You're not allowed to sell stocks for another 9 months if you're a Chinese citizen. They've put other regulations in there as well. And then to see that transfer over into the American market, perhaps there's a lot of Chinese investors in America. Perhaps they went in and they caused a bit of a slump there, and the New York Stock Exchange heads pulled the plug on that and obviously put it out there on the airwaves. It was a technical glitch.
Well, that's a very convenient way of stopping it, isn't it? By stopping everything before it starts.
Yeah, well, their plan is further down the track. This may be part of whatever plan's in place. But what is happening, people? We need to start taking notice. As we've already mentioned in these episodes, there are some safety nets out there. We are advocates of hard assets, gold and silver bullion, holding it in your hand. That's what we suggest you do. If you can get it while it's cheap, and get it while it's there, because as we've already alluded to, there's a squeeze on in America at the moment. Here in New Zealand, you can still buy the product, but there is a squeeze on, and it won't be long before product becomes less available on your local shores.
Yeah, that's true. And as we mentioned in the last program, we've almost got to have a holistic approach to dealing with this ourselves. So we're preparing with our precious metals, but we also need to be preparing for the other eventualities of a global financial crash or a disaster, so that we've got our physical needs covered, as we mentioned in the last show. In the before the end of this show, I would like to give you one more prepper tip for surviving, but we'll come to that just before the end.
Yeah, and I just want to just really emphasize there's the three things that we need at this time. First is that we need to have our spiritual life in order. We need that relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. We need to have a solid relationship there. That's number one. Number two is we need to have our food and our shelter sorted, as Tony's already alluded to. And number three, we need to have some monetary backup, which is i.e. gold and silver. So those are the three main things, and we emphasise that on every show.
Good. That's good to reiterate that, Chris. I'd like to just digress a little bit here and say I don't believe these events are random. I believe that there's an overarching plan to bring in a new world order, and they're using this financial crisis as a stepping stone for that. I mean, we've heard Pope Francis even coming out and talking about the need to create a new economic order. On his tour of South America, he's become quite vocal about the new world order. So even he's well and truly entrenched in it, I believe. And that the plan for a new world order, people may not realise, actually goes back to 1776, where a guy called Adam Weishaupt wrote out a seven-part plan to create a new world order. Now, you may be just interested to see what that seven-part plan contained. Here they are, 7 steps almost. First, the abolition of all ordered governments. Second, abolition of private property. Third, abolition of inheritance. Fourth, abolition of patriotism. 5, abolition of the family. 6, abolition of religion. 7, creation of a new world order. Now, if we look down there, just how many of those things can we see playing out now are becoming evident? If we go, the abolition of private property, the end result of major financial catastrophe in the globe will be people losing their houses and their land in many cases. So that'll play into their mix of capitalism or super capitalism and communism in the New World Order, which is what I believe they're aiming for. The abolition of patriotism. Now, aren't we seeing a great war in America at the moment between the patriots and the government almost? You can see almost civil war brewing over
the
it.
Confederate flag issue.
Yeah, well, what a red herring in many ways. A distraction.
That's quite a list you got there, and yeah, there's a lot already in play. I mean, the disintegration of the family.
Well, exactly. You can see that happening big time at the moment. In fact, I'd like to just read a little bit from a book that was written in 1989. The book was called The New World Order, and it was written by Ralph Epperson. And in that, he states this: the New World Order will include changes in the family. Homosexual marriages will be legalized. Parents will not be allowed to raise their children. The state will. All women will be employed by the state and not allowed to be homemakers. Divorce will become exceedingly easy and monogamous marriage will be slowly phased out. The workplace. The government will become the owner of all the factors of production. The private ownership of property will be outlawed. Religion. Religion will be outlawed and believers will either be eliminated or imprisoned. There'll be a new world religion, the worship of man and his mind. So that's quite a list. And I believe this plan for a new world order is, whilst it came out originally in 1776, it's been in constant play ever since, and they've been working towards that goal. Here's a quote from Council on Foreign Relations member James Warburg to the Senate on Foreign Relations Committee in February 17, 1950. We shall have world government whether or not you like it, by conquest or consent. And Henry Kissinger, Mr. Globalist himself. in 1991, he said, "Today, America would be outraged if UN troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told that there were an outside threat from beyond, whether real or promulgated, that threatened our very existence. It is then that all peoples of the world will plead to deliver them from this evil. The one thing every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by the world government." That's Henry Kissinger. So the plan for a new world order is well and truly, it's a long-standing plan, and it's becoming implemented more and more by incremental steps as we speak. And we're getting very close, I believe, to the fulfillment of their plans, the globalist plans for a new world order. What do you think of that, Chris?
I think it's more like an evil empire system rather than a new world order.
Yeah, it sure is. It's certainly a godless one, and, the family, without strong families, I can't see how we can have strong societies.
Just listening to those, was it 7?
The 7 Illuminati seven-part plan, yeah.
I can't help think but how that's correlated possibly to the Trans-Pacific Partnership Alliance that's taking place at this time.
Oh, yeah, I'm absolutely convinced that that's a big step by the globalists to bring in this New World Order. Because I believe the New World Order is, as I stated earlier, a mix of super-capitalism and communism. So you'll have the controlling people at the top, which will be the corporations. And their goal with the Trans-Pacific Partnership is to give themselves more power while the rest of us have less.
Yeah, just the Trans-Pacific Partnership Alliance. If the listeners don't know of it, I think it's about 12 nations throughout the Pacific, including the US and New Zealand, Australia are part of that as well. They're using it as a trade alliance to get it through their parliaments, through their government systems. But that's it's really just a smokescreen. The whole trade side of it. There's a lot in there that's going to allow corporations throughout the world to take control over governments. They'll be able to sue governments. There's a lot in here. There's a lot that hasn't been shown to the people. And there's a lot of indoor there's a lot of behind the scenes taking place between governments that the New World Order people want put into place.
You know, Chris, I'm staggered how many people I speak to that don't even know what TPPA or the TPP agreement is. They either haven't heard of it or they just think, oh, it's just some old free trade agreement, just like other trade agreements that we've had. The majority of people seem to be blinded.
They're just blasé, and that's because we've been brought up to be blasé. We've been brought up to just take whatever comes. And that's what's happening in society today, folks. And we've got to waken up to it. We've got to have our eyes open. We're living in dangerous, perilous times. And this TPPA, we don't want it.
No, we sure don't. I believe we need to fight it as much as we possibly can.
I think we need to talk some more about what it is about. I mean, our environment, it can affect our environment. If globalists get hold of this, it's put forward, if it passes, then corporations have got the right. I'll give you an example. Corporations who produce seed, they'll allow GMO, that's genetically modified seed, into New Zealand, which we don't want. And if we don't accept it, that gives these corporations the right to sue the governments, and it's us, the taxpayers, that'll be paying for any payouts.
Yeah, the thing is, a multinational chemical company is a classic example. I mean, they could tell us under that TPPA agreement that whatever, some chemical that we must use it in New Zealand, we can't outlaw it. And if, as a country, we decide we don't want that particular chemical because we believe it's dangerous for our health, if it impinges on the profits of that company, they could sue the whole country and say, no, you agreed with the 12 other countries in this agreement, which will allow the global corporations to use their chemical in the United States, say, for example. Thereby, we would be bound by the same law that says we have to be able to use that same chemical in New Zealand. New Zealand couldn't outlaw it if the United States and other countries agreed to its use. This is the sinister thing of this TPPA agreement.
Yes.
Well, Chris, our time's pretty much running down here. I would just like to give our listeners one prepper tip for this week about water usage. It's wise to sort out solutions to your potential problems before the problems arise so that you're well prepared in advance. In an emergency situation, it may be harder to obtain the materials necessary to accomplish these tasks. For example, in the event of an economic collapse or a natural disaster, having safe drinking water could become an issue. So it's wise to think about that now. Either purchase yourself a commercially made filtration system, or alternatively you could make your own filtration system from readily obtainable materials. One of the simplest methods of creating clean drinking water from almost any water source is to use a combination of charcoal, sand and gravel. In an emergency situation, you could even make a small filter system in an old drink bottle. But if you're better prepared, making a simple water filtration system using 2 food grade buckets and layers of gravel, sand and charcoal can make a great filtration system. These, by the way, are known as bio water filters. There are some great designs online. I suggest that you go and check some of them out to see which one might work best for you. One of those biofilters would pretty much clean up even dirty creek water if you can handle that thought, though you might still have to boil it afterwards just to kill off any viruses and pathogens.
Well, it was another good show, and we look forward to the next episode. No doubt there'll be a lot more water going under the bridge, and we'll be able to share a lot with you on the next show. So it's goodbye from me, Chris.
And from Tony.